I'm Felicia Marcus, Chair of the Board, and today is Tuesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, at 9:16 a.m., and the meeting is called to order. With me are, to my left, Vice Chair Fran Spivey Weber, to her left, Board Member Didi Diadamo, to my right, Board Member Tam Doduk, and to her right, Board Member Stephen Moore. Mr. Howard, will you introduce the members of the staff that are assisting you today?
Yes, thank you. To my left, Chief Counsel Michael Laufer. To my right, Chief Deputy Karen Turgovich and Max Gomberg is staff working with us. And Janine Townsend and Courtney Davis are assisting the board today.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Emergency evacuation procedure, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this building, look to see where the nearest exits are, and if you hear an emergency sound, gather your belongings, your friends, etc., and proceed carefully outside the building. We do convene in Cesar Chavez Park near the corner of J and 10th. And if you want to join us, then you'll know when the all clear comes and it's time to come back into the building. You don't have to go wherever you like. The meeting's being webcast and recorded, as I said, so it becomes very important to do a couple things. One is to set your sound makers on stun or turn them off for sound purposes. And when you get up to the microphone, and this is a little tricky, it's important to get close enough to it to be sure that it's being picked up. It's helpful if we can hear you, but you also want people in the back of the room and on the webcast to hear you. But don't get so close to it that it creates static for the folks who are listening online. I know that's a trick. I think the answer is to be between 1 and 2 inches away from it. You can sort of hear when you're being amplified, so that's important. I think those are the basics, right? Haven't forgotten any of my basics? That's it? All right, well, let's go. We're now on to public forum, and that's the time at which the board hears from anyone who has something to say to us that is not on today's agenda. And today I have one card so far, and that is Michael Warburton, the Executive Director of the Public Trust Alliance. Mr. Warburton, good morning.
Well within the trust doctrine is a very important part of California law since the very beginning of the state. And in this set of remarks that are not on the agenda, I want to talk about protecting the public trust and reasonableness. Because any action taken by a government body should make sense to the public and should be explainable. And more and more things are not explainable, especially the law. There's ideas about percolating groundwater. We know a lot more about groundwater than people have before, and it doesn't just exist in these pools. There's a real problem with sea level rising and saltwater intrusion in a number of areas. Coastal infrastructure, the economics and the analysis of risk have changed fundamentally since the Superstorm Sandy. It's not the same thing to build or to protect property in the coastal zone anymore. And one of the most important things that's not being analyzed before the boards and commissions of California is change of circumstances. I'm often before the California Public Utilities Commission. Now, the Public Utilities Commission has changed profoundly since some of the applications that are standing before it, and the world in which the projects are being implemented has changed fundamentally. And yet, there's no analysis of changed circumstances, and the same attempts to justify projects year after year are going on, even though the world that the projects are being implemented in is totally different, and the public for whom they are being implemented is totally different. And several decisions are not done deals, as many of the people and parties have considered them to be. And the public is changing. It's not clear that you get 100-year free change to keep doing what you've done. Okay, how long do you get? Well, slavery ended, and the legal duty to end slavery was recognized in Roman law in 568 AD. Took 1,300 years. People say the same thing is true of water. Water law changes phenomenally. It's happened before in California, and our environmental laws have made a difference. The entire economy of California changed from mining to agriculture, and the farmers didn't buy the water from the miners. Now, why all of a sudden does it have to be that no matter what California becomes, people have to buy the water from farmers? It has not been given to them. Never. And protecting the public trust has been part of California law. It came down in 1983 with the National Audubon case that all water rights in California are subject to the public trust. And when water is being allocated and distributed, the public trust must be considered. And constitutionally, the water belongs to the people, although the law does recognize the right to reasonable use, but that reasonable use has to make sense. In 1926, the Constitution was amended so that it was understood by all parties that a water right does not mean that you have the right to waste or to unreasonably divert water. And there's parts of California that are not hooked up to the state water project, and certain things like a Monterey Agreement does not apply to them. And there is a historic obligation of the state to protect domestic use of water and then agriculture. And in some cases where readily acceptable or accessible supplies, where less than 0.5% of agricultural savings could totally solve the urban problem, it simply does not make sense to do something like require a desalinization plant where water rates are tripled and quadrupled and maintained extremely high. And I think this board is equipped, and it has the historical law in order to make choices. The mileposts are set out in public trust jurisprudence. There is such a thing as physical solutions, and science is changing, and you don't just throw it all out and say because there's a doubt nobody makes any sense. And I think uncertainty has to be taken better care of, and I see that you guys have a long agenda, but please consider the public trust and reasonableness in anything you do.
Thank you, Mr. Warburton, for that reminder to sort of aim high in steering. More to come on all those issues. All right. Next, we have minutes from April 21st.
Do not.
No, we do not. Oh, this thing that says there are no board minutes here, that comes on top of where it says April 21st? I'm putting my glasses back on, vanity aside. All right. Items 2 through 4 were listed as uncontested, but we have a number of speakers on item number 4? Yeah, right? 4. So we'll take items 2 and 3. Do I have a motion?
Move to adopt.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item number 4, how do you want to proceed? A presentation and then hear from our speakers, if you don't mind? A brief presentation so folks, just out of courtesy. Short but sweet, because the speakers know what we're talking about and we know, but those folks back there who aren't here on this item are in a hurry, but they need to understand what we're talking about. So if you can just do a brief, that would be good.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm Dan Newton, Senior Engineer and Program Manager of the Water Recycling Funding Program. The item before you for consideration is an item to add 5 projects, 5 recycled water projects to the Water Recycling's competitive project list. That competitive project list is a necessary step for projects to receive Proposition 13 grant and loan funding. The list by no means encumbers or commits funding to these projects, but it's a formality that's necessary per the 2000 bond law. By the way, this item is recommended to be changed through the new guidelines, this process.
But to streamline it, I assume. In some
Correct,
way.
correct. That's the quick version of it. Typically a very straightforward process, but we're putting these 5 together so that I can ensure that I move roughly $2.5 million of grant funding that will expire in June 30th. So this list ensures that I can meet that commitment.
All right. Well, why don't we go to the speaker cards and then you all will be available to answer questions. Our first speaker is Luke Coletti. Followed by Rich Svindlard from Cal-Am.
My name is Luke Coletti. I'm a longtime resident of Pacific Grove. I won't take much of your time today, but I do have some serious concerns regarding the Pacific Grove Local Water Project, one of the 5 that's been mentioned, and I hope you've received my comments. First, in Pacific Grove, this project has always been about obtaining potable water for new growth in exchange for producing non-potable water for irrigation. With that said, I really don't see this project as a conservation effort, and I wonder if Prop 13 monies should be used to fund it. Leaving that aside, I do want to bring your attention to the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District Ordinance, attachment number 2 included in my comments. Apparently soon after the first reading of this proposed ordinance, the Water Management District has asked the city to prepare a supplemental EIR in support of this effort. This particular supplemental EIR process has not yet begun, but here are some of the stated objectives, and I'm reading these directly from the agenda that's going to be for the Pacific Grove City Council coming up tomorrow. I'm actually just going to read one, and it's number 12, bullet number 12. It mentions the infill development that will result from in lieu water supply is dependent on reuse of water saved by the city and could potentially have a greater environmental effect under the cumulative impacts analysis and potentially traffic and utilities, cultural resources, and services impact than was analyzed in the original local water project EIR. with this in mind, I'm asking you, the board, I'm asking you to delay funding of this project until this important supplemental EIR, which addresses many of the concerns I've put in my comments and read here to you today, is finished and comments received. I don't have a problem with treating wastewater and turning it into non-potable water, but there has been a hidden agenda. It's even been hidden from staff by their own admission from the applicants, at least in my opinion, and that is that this is all about producing potable water, and it's for growth, and there's a reason for that. Pacific Grove is in financial ruins, so this is their big opportunity to, as they state here, develop infill. But that's not what conservation is. Conservation is about conserving. And I don't see this project as doing anything close to that, especially with the agenda behind it. And I hope you'll consider delaying funding, looking at it more closely, waiting until the supplemental EIR is actually in place, because that addresses most of the concerns I've raised. And I think it's going to be important for you to look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll have a question, but I'll listen to the speakers first.
Good morning, members of the board. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rich Svindlin. I'm the Vice President of Operations for California American Water, and I've been intimately involved with our desal project down in Monterey for the last 5 years since I've been in California. Anyway, I'm here to provide support for the Pacific Grove Small project that we're talking about today. We've known about this project the whole time. It was contemplated in our sizing of our desal plant. We like the concept of getting golf courses off potable water and using this type of water for irrigation of golf courses and cemeteries. We think it's the right project, the right time. I actually commend the city for pushing this along and trying to get this done. So my comments are brief. I'm just here to say that CalAM's in full support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I mispronounced your name. I was just reading the card. I should have just remembered. And then, Mr. Mayor Camp, it says, if needed, would you like to speak? It'd be nice to hear from you. I appreciate that. Of course.
Chair Marcus, members of the board, I'm Bill Camp. I'm mayor for the city of Pacific Grove. I want to say first, we appreciate very much the effort that the State Water Resources Control Board has put into supporting the project thus far, and hope that at the end of this session, we will continue to see that support moving this along. This project was very simply conceived both as a need and a desire to remove our golf course off of a source of potable water. And that has always been the original impetus for the project. I appreciate the support from CalAM. We also have members of our Monterey Peninsula Water Management District in our audience today. Pacific Grove is still very much, in our terms of our water usage, controlled by the State Water Resources Control Board Order 9510. No new meters can be set for new services. Our peninsula is unique in the sense that the Water Management District allocates water from all sources, and the issue that was raised by a prior speaker directly deals with an action by our Water Management District under that authority. The draft ordinance is consistent with the drought guidelines and it would apply to lots of record only. There was mention of infill. I'll give some information about our city in a moment. The CDO is still very much in effect. Nothing is going to happen until the CDO really is complied with as it exists today.
Probably have the tightest management of any area in the state.
Thank you. 55 gallons per day under, and the reporting period ended December, 33 gallons per person per day, which we're very pleased to see. And our citizens in our city are very committed to that level of conservation. We are party to 2 settlement agreements before the CPUC. Both of those settlement agreements basically say no growth. It's lots of record only and economic rebound from the downturn baseline that was used in setting the settlement agreements. A little bit of background for the city of Pacific Grove. We're 98% built out. We're a very small city, 2.7 square miles. We have very few lots of record for infill, only about 45 lots out of 8,000, about 0.5% of our city is available for infill. We do have rehabilitation needs for existing built lots, and only 6% is commercial. And I know that the prior speaker was very concerned about commercial, and commercial is extremely limited in our city. The project EIR, which has been published, I brought it with me. I can't hold up the very large document, but it very directly considered our general plan and in particular the housing element. In a prior water waiting list, we had 41 of 43 projects were residential, which is the largest part of our city, and it indicates the balance of attention that we give in our city. So I hope very much that we will continue to see support from this board. This water project, I should mention, is the one element of our water portfolio that is actually on track for November 2016 prior to the CDO. We hope it can stay on track. We're very committed. It's a small part of it. We realize that. But our city has been very, very committed to try to take that step of reducing the flow or the draw from the Carmel River by 125 acre feet through this project. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you very much for coming all the way here. I just have a quick question. Others may have questions, just so I understand it. And not for you, Mayor Camp, not that. The legal issue that Mr. Coletti raised, I know they'll need to finish the CEQA process before they could actually get funding, right? That's what was just explained to me. I knew that, but it was explained to me in another context.
Yes,
just
that is
yesterday
correct.
by another mayor in another city.
We are unable to execute an agreement until we have a complete adopted,
Right.
approved environmental
So
document.
this is just putting them on the list so that they're capable of being funded, but you can't fund until the environmental review is complete.
Correct.
Right.
So far at
So I
this
have
point,
that
they've met
right.
all the objectives of the guidelines, but we're still doing our due diligence in processing the application.
And additionally, the comment letter talked about granting conservation credits for this project. That's not what's before us today. We're just going through an administrative process to make projects eligible, but there will still be supplemental requirements that any project in the state for water recycling have to go through.
Exactly.
So conservation credits are not being discussed today, and it isn't an a priori granting of those.
Other comments or questions?
If there are none, I will move for adoption of this item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It carries. Thank you for flagging the issues for us, though, Mr. Coletti. And thank the rest of you for coming down to help us understand it. Next item. Item number 5. Mr. Howard, would you introduce the item? Thank you all.
John O'Hagan will provide the drought update for the board.
Well, the rainy season's over.
Actually, it's going to rain a little bit this week.
Yeah, Thursday.
Well, that will be delightful. How much will it rain?
Slight chance of
I'll take it.
So we are always optimistic. Good morning. My name is John O'Hagan. I'm the Assistant Division, forgot what I am. Anyway, I'm going to give a drought update for the board here today. First off, I want to remind the board that we are going to be having a public workshop on May 20th. That's for receiving comments on Bay Delta issues. In that workshop, We'll be getting information on the Bay Delta temporary urgency change from the project. We'll also be discussing Delta barriers, curtailment, and transfers by the project. So a lot of the update I'm going to give you will be short today because of the items that will be discussed at that workshop.
Also temperature, right?
And temperature is included.
Sacramento River temperature, okay.
That is correct.
Temperature control, right, that's part of TUCP, though, right?
So yesterday, the executive director approved the 401 certification for installation of one Delta barrier on the West Falls River. With that approval, construction is scheduled to start tomorrow. It will be operational in June, and then it will be removed in October. So that is the planned schedule for the Delta barrier on West Falls River.
I have a question. Will that May 20th workshop, it will also cover wildlife that is being affected by these activities. Is that correct or not?
I believe that the discussions could include those as well because the notice isn't restricted and comments can come in.
Can you make sure that Fish and Wildlife and the other fish agencies are here? They would be
Exactly.
anyway, right?
I would hope so.
They've all been invited.
They're going to
yes.
be here, and they're planning to talk about fish and wildlife issues, including birds and giant garter snake and all of the other concerns.
Bears in Bakersfield?
Probably not.
That's my favorite wildlife-urban interface of the, sorry.
Okay, on water transfers, as I mentioned on our last update, we had received a petition from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and the Department of Water Resources for the consolidated place use. That order was approved on April 27th for an exchange or transfer of 335,000 acre-feet of water. Additionally, we have approved a temporary urgency change order for the Sonoma County Water Agency on the Russian River at Lake Mendocino. That order reduces flows in the upper and lower Russian River to allow more storage in Lake Mendocino. And according to Sonoma County Water Agency, roughly 6,300 acre-feet of stored water in Lake Mendocino may be saved through this order.
I have a question on this, since this comes up every year and ends up being, it's just a particular challenge given the nature of the different water agencies there. I would love, and if out later, if either one of the other board members who's focused on the Russian River can join me, or if they want to take it on themselves, I'd like to have a conversation in the long term about how to manage that so that every year we don't end up with this, who's going to apply, are they going to apply, are they not going to apply, et cetera, because it seems time intensive. So I'd just as soon see if we can come up with a multi-year framework.
For the long-term plan, we do have a long-term change petition for this, so that is always ongoing. But in the interim, the TUCs are necessary for the yearly actions if needed. So we do have a long-term change petition on file with us from the Sonoma County Water Agency.
Is that newly filed?
I don't know the exact date of file. I can get that information to you.
Is it this year?
No, it's been on file.
I think both Sonoma County and some of the upper watershed agencies don't love this process. So that's what I want to talk about, figuring out a way that
Okay.
it's less labor intensive by spending a little time up front.
Okay, we will take care of that. We do also have some pending temporary urgency changes. Merced Irrigation has filed a temporary urgency change petition to allow relief from a minimum pool schedule for Lake McClure to allow Lake Don Pedro Community Service District to take 600 acre-feet of water from the dead storage pool. And also to reduce their April through May bypasses from 60 CFS to 40 CFS. We also have a TUC from June Lake Public Utility District that doesn't require approval until June 1st, and then also the City of Hillsburg. And that is for initial review by the division staff and then approval by July 1. So we have those actions. On curtailment, we discussed curtailments. As you know, we did the Antelope and Deer Creek curtailments for in-stream flow protections previously. On the Scott River, post-1914 rights and also surplus class rights have been curtailed. That's the same as we did last year. In the Sacramento-San Joaquin River watershed, on April 23rd, we curtailed the San Joaquin side, and as of May 1st, the Sacramento and Delta post-1914 water rights have all been curtailed. So we are at a level of curtailment in the Sacramento, San Joaquin, and Delta area that we were about nearly a month ahead of last year on curtailments.
I was going to ask you the difference between this year and last. Thank you.
Last year, these curtailments were issued on May 28th. This year, May 1st, so that's 27 days. Term 91 was also kicked in the day before, April 30th, and that's the condition in which supplemental project water is being released by the department and the Bureau to meet the Delta standards downstream. And all of our monitoring of that is posted on the website, as well as our curtailment analysis. For future curtailments, we are continuing to monitor other watersheds for the need. At this time, we don't see that, but in the Sacramento-San Joaquin, we plan on meeting with the stakeholders of the San Joaquin River watershed to discuss the possibility of curtailments of pre-1914 and riparian rights. At that meeting, we also will be having the Department of Water Resource come in and present their calculations of full natural flow that was requested by stakeholders.
When will that meeting be held?
I believe that is being scheduled for next Tuesday. And that's all I have right now.
Corresponding with the stakeholders, I know it's been helpful on a lot of fronts, so thanks for all the extra engagement of you and your other colleagues, and Mr. Howard in particular.
Okay.
Are there further questions? Pretty hefty actions.
There is a lot. I mean, there are a few cases that we heard about last year that I haven't heard you mention. For instance, the El Dorado issue with the wastewater flows that provide for fish and wildlife. Was that an arrangement that had a longer time scale, or has that come up?
That may come up again, yes. I'm not familiar with the exact stage of that, whether we received anything like that, but it wasn't on my notes from my staff.
Okay. Well, good. No, thanks for the update. I think it highlights that the agricultural users in our state are taking a huge hit, and it's good for the folks that are in the audience to hear about those real numbers, that this is a shared challenge throughout our state.
Yeah, I believe that the curtailments that of the post-14 affects 70% of the water rights that are listed that have been curtailed include agricultural use.
Now, on the workshop that you have on May 20th, because we haven't heard very much about fish and wildlife issues, I don't want that to be at the very end. I guess that's my request. Figure out when best to do it, but do it earlier so that that issue does get front and center as we discuss these other things that we've gone over regularly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of a parade of horribles all around, but we do have to hear them. It's important. We do have one speaker card on this. It's about pools and spas. Even though we're doing conservation regs, we're not regulating pools and spas, so technically this is not on the agenda, and the speaker wanted to speak now, so I'm going to let it happen. Keith Harbeck from the California Pool and Spa Association and Premier Pools and Spas.
That's for the next item, not for this.
No, it's for this. That's what I thought. But he wanted to talk on this item. So since there's just one, I will let you, but it's more in line with our next topic. But go ahead.
My apologies if I'm speaking at the wrong time. And thank you very much for hearing me. I'm a pool builder. I've been in the pool industry for 37 years. This is the only way I've made my living. And I speak today on behalf of the California Pool and Spa Association and the thousands of families that our industry employs throughout the state of California.
And your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, Keith Harbeck. Despite a lot of misperception about swimming pools, and I know this is a sensitive topic at a dire time, our product is a good one. And these are not numbers that the pool industry has made up. The numbers that I use in presenting this information are from independent studies, from government studies, and from water agencies. When you take into account the totality of a pool installation, which includes the surface area of the water and the necessary hardscape that goes around with it, when you take that average installation, a swimming pool is shown kind of undeniably to use somewhere between a third and a half of the water that a lawn would use, closer to a third of the water a lawn would use. There was a study done by the Santa Margarita Water Agency that actually demonstrated that when you look at our average installation, it actually, even an uncovered pool, can compare favorably to drought-tolerant landscape. So it's kind of undeniable that square foot for square foot, we're not doing a bad thing. We're saving water in backyards when we install a swimming pool. In addition to that, there's quite a positive economic impact for the state of California. Unknown to many people, the pool business is a $5 billion industry in the state of California. The part I wanted to talk about, though, is just swimming pool construction, because that's what's being threatened in some municipalities. Swimming pool construction is about a $600 million industry. It employs 9,000 people just in pool construction, Californians in the state of California. And as far as an economic impact or bang for the buck, for per acre foot of water that we use to fill our pools, we're generating about $800,000 in income. There's about 11,000 jobs that are created per 1,000 acre feet of water. I have to do the math on that, because the entire pool industry does not use 1,000 acre feet of water to fill all of the pools that will be built in the state of California. That's not really the best part, though. The best part isn't that we don't increase water use. We actually save water. The fact that there's a great economic impact. I think the best part about what pool industry does is we build for families. We provide healthy recreational spots. These become gathering spots for family, for friends, for children, where they can exercise together, play together. So even though it's an economic use of water, it really, it hurts me to hear people talk about that as water waste. That is water use, and it does result in water savings. Real quickly, I want to get to the point of why I wanted to talk and kind of get to a conclusion here. We have a problem in the pool industry in that we kind of stand alone as an industry that's being singled out in spite of these facts by certain municipalities. And I think what it is it's a symbolic thing. People see this as something filled with water. It must be a terrible waste of water. I wanted to read from you. There's a city council in Southern California today that's considering their planning commission's general consensus, what that city should do. And I'll read directly what it says. Implement a suspension on permits for new pools, understanding that this measure would be largely symbolic. And I guess my question is that what we've come to? I don't think it's the intent of water regulations to take an industry, a business made up of small businesses, and make them kind of a symbolic gesture and put them out of business, especially when what they're doing, as I think the numbers can show, they're not made up pool numbers. What we're doing is we take lawns out. We take landscapes out that are using a lot of water, and we put in a small pool and lots of hardscape, and those yards use less water and provide that healthy family environment. So I just would like to say, if there's anything this board can do to make it clear to municipalities that that's not the intent of these regulations. We're not trying to run people out of business, especially if they're not wasting water. I think this is such a great opportunity for this year to be a constructive year, where we look at ways to eliminate water waste, where we look at ways to conserve. Industries like mine should be part of the solution. What more can we do? And we have ideas on that. But I just think it's destructive to take an industry like ours and single it out as some kind of symbolic poster child and make it look like a municipality is doing something. You know, finally, we have a website that we came up with, the California Pool and Spa Association. It's called Let's Pool Together. And on that website, we try to show how people can further their water savings with a swimming pool, tips for the pool owner. We want to do more with that. A featured partner on that website is the Aqua site, Save Our Water. So in closing,
You win the prize for being the first person to say that, Joe, since that is the thing we all must say throughout the day.
so I guess in closing, rather than what tends to happen, where we look at who's using water and we villainize this group one week and another group another week, and it's the farmers, and then it's Nestle water, and then it's an almond grower, and it's a golf course. Instead of resorting to that, maybe we can combine our two slogans and let's pool together to save our water.
Thank you very much for that. It's a good intro into the next item. I agree. It is painful to see the vilification not based on facts of individual users. I keep thinking that we're in some stages of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, of grief, denial, blame, whatever, bargaining. Eventually we get to resignation and acceptance, and that can't come too soon. But the finger pointing has been particularly painful, where folks have picked whatever is symbolic or whatever they see and assume it must be them, when in fact it is a collective issue that we all need to rise to in this time of emergency, where we want to save as much water as we can. And so vilifying a given use absent of the facts isn't helpful. What we've tried to do, as you can see in this, is there are targets, and it is up to local agencies to do this. But the target of actually reducing reducing water use in order to preserve urban resiliency in the event that it doesn't rain next year or the next is really the target. And so hopefully with that target, it behooves communities to actually focus on where the water is and doing it in the most cost-effective way possible, and the one that does the least economic harm, but also the one that makes the most sense. And to the extent that we have singled out any use, it has been overwatering of ornamental landscapes, not even killing them, but we've been very clear. We want people to water trees. We want functional landscapes are great. They just don't need to look like St. Andrews, et cetera. And so that would be our fervent hope, but the regulations as crafted tend to they're constructed to leave it to local agencies. So I'm afraid you and your colleagues are going to have to go to each of those. That's my 2 cents, but appreciate you raising that issue, because it has been very painful and time-consuming to deal with the distraction of folks picking their favorite villain as opposed to looking at the data and the numbers. With that, let's move on to item number 6. I don't think are we okay? We'll take a break at some point mid-morning, but I'd like to get going on the presentation and start on the comments, because I don't know how many we have, and we really want to give it the time.
Chair Marcus?
Yes.
As the staff are coming up, I'd just like to provide some brief background for what you're going to be hearing this morning.
That would be great.
So I just wanted to maybe take a step back and talk about the fundamental policy direction that was taken in the staff proposal that will be presented to you shortly. And first, it goes to the point that you just made, that it's about the urgency of the current drought that we find ourselves in, and looking for what can be done right now to save water. And the summer months are right in front of us, and we know that approximately 50% of residential water use is on average used outdoors, and in some cases it can be up to 80%. So it represents a very real and prudent opportunity for savings that can occur right now. And for that reason, the proposal that's going to be presented to you focuses on that outdoor component. But what that also means is that suppliers and communities that use higher water, that have higher water use outdoors, are going to be asked to do more. water. So that's a fundamental policy element of what's coming forward to you. So the team that's assembled before you has a pretty challenging task, they've had one for the last month. There have been a lot of communities, whether coastal or inland, small or large, that have achieved extraordinary water savings to date, and they focus not just on outdoor watering, but many of them have been at it for quite a long time, and they've implemented programs indoors that have achieved or will achieve future savings, but these are longer-term investments. Water suppliers and communities around the state have made it clear that they support conservation, but they would like their own unique situations addressed. And I'm just going to take a moment just to talk about those unique situations, because I think it's important because of all of the issues that we're trying to deal with in the comments that are coming forward. For example, there are communities that believe they're not experiencing drought conditions, either with respect to their hydrology or supply. And in the northern portion of the state, we've received, in fact, information that identifies some of those communities. Hotter, drier inland communities would like to see alternative approaches that would provide residents in hotter climates with more water to maintain their landscapes, not to see the kind of cuts that we're talking about here. Communities in fire-prone areas want to be able to maintain well-irrigated green spaces around their homes. And just as an aside, I don't know if you heard it, but I heard a report on the radio this morning as I was coming in where CAL FIRE Director Ken Pimlock talked about residents and fire spaces and urging them to clear space and conserve water. So the big focus for our fire agencies as well is that dual purpose of keeping a clean exterior and conserving water at the same time. And he emphasized that residents don't need to water lawns and unnecessary landscaping, but the dried vegetation and grass need to be removed. I'm sorry, I just quoted him. I thought that was an important point. Additional requests that we've received are from suppliers that have invested in many projects that expand local drought-resistant supplies. These are incredibly important for a resilient water future here in California, and those communities would like to take credit for the water that's supplied by these projects. Commercial, industrial, and institutional properties would like their indoor water use exempted, and you'll hear more about that today, I'm sure. Communities with lower incomes are concerned that they'll bear the burden of increased costs to fund basic services. And communities with transient populations, those that serve tourist destinations, do not want to be responsible for their visitors' water use. Local governments would like institutions that protect the health and safety of their residents, such as hospitals and jails, to have their indoor water use exempted. And we've also heard from some suppliers with energy production facilities that are requesting exemptions for those uses as well. This isn't a complete list, but I wanted to begin to paint a picture of the challenge that's before us as we try to craft an approach that saves real water now and prepares us for what may yet be another dry year. All of the comments, and I'm sure there are many more that you will hear during the course of the day today, raise very important points that for the most part we agree should be considered if in fact dry conditions persist for an extended period. But the challenge before us right now is to save water this summer and into the fall months. So we're looking for an approach that yields water in a short amount of time. So before I turn it over to Max Gomberg for the presentation itself, I just want to take a moment to recognize the folks sitting in the front row because they've been absent to their families for the last month. As you know, the executive order came out on the 1st of April, and today is the 5th of May. We've had 2 informal comment periods, and today the proposed regulation is before you. And so just to take a moment to recognize the folks up in the front row here, and the missing person is Eric Oppenheimer, who I'm going to mention first. He has a family emergency this morning, but he's going to try to join us later this afternoon. And Eric has kind of led the team, pulled things together, and really done a tremendous amount of the data work that you'll see before you. Max Gomberg and Jessica Bean as well with ORPP. Jessica actually works in her day job in the groundwater unit. And they've done an incredible amount of work here, and Max will be the one making the presentation for you, and many have heard him speak all over the state. David Rose and Nathan Weaver are our staff counsels who've been working with us. They're the ones that have pulled the regulations together, that have pulled the digest together, so the written materials before you are in large part them, and they've done an incredible job trying to listen to everyone and take in those comments. And so everyone brought together their skills and did what was necessary, but I want to take a minute just to recognize everyone in the audience as well, because the stakeholder groups too worked with us over this last month. They're the ones that submitted comments the first time, the second time, and the third time. And they're the ones that submitted those comments early as well when they could, to help us get through those next 3 or 4 days. And we appreciate that tremendously. And they also opened up their organizations to us, inviting us in to meet with their the folks that they represent, to hear their comments directly. So I also want to thank them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Max.
Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you, Karen.
Opening.
Good morning, Chair Marcus, board members, Max Gomberg. Today we're going to present on the proposal, the staff proposal for implementing the governor's executive order to achieve a 25% reduction in potable water use across the state. So you don't need to hear more about the impacts this drought is having. They are and have been devastating. If it does not rain and snow this winter, they will be even greater. And conserving now and conserving as much as possible over the summer, as Karen mentioned, is really imperative at this point. And as she mentioned, this executive order was issued on April 1st, and since then we have been working diligently to bring this proposal before you. So I mentioned some of those impacts on the first slide. These are some of the residents of East Porterville. Their community ran out of water last year. How each of us uses water in our communities and beyond affects all of us. And just want to remind everyone that what the action the board is taking today is not the only action that the state is doing to address the drought. So there are a number of things listed here that are activities that the state is engaged in to really ensure that our drought response is as robust as possible. The governor's April 1st executive order also initiated new programs, and 3 of those programs are listed here, which will be run respectively by the Department of Water Resources and by the state's Energy Commission. And the first 2 are really going to help this summer. And for everyone who's been waiting to take out their lawn or replace that old inefficient washing machine, now is going to be the time, because we're going to have additional incentive programs available across the state. The third bullet, this water energy technology program, is going to harness the great reserve of innovation that we have in California and all of our talent to develop the technologies for today and tomorrow that will save both water and energy. And look for more details on these programs coming soon. So how are we doing? Well, we've done well, but we have a long way to go. And so what you see on this chart is water use by month. The gold is 2013 water use, and the blue is the water use over the last 9 months. And what you can see is that there have been savings every month, and the total amount of savings is impressive. Over 469,000 acre feet saved over these 9 months. But this only totals less than 9% cumulative savings over this time period, and that's far short of the 20% that the governor called for last year. So we need to do more. And one thing you can see on this chart is we don't have the months of April and May. They're coming. But you can see how those summer bars, June through September, are really high. That's when it's hot. That's when water use is the highest. And that's why our focus is and continues to be on reducing that summertime outdoor water use. And I'll have more to say about that as we go through. So this chart, again, just shows how we've been doing in another format. The blue bars are the savings each month compared to the same month in 2013. And the red line shows the cumulative savings percentage across the state. And this is the way we're going to be tracking reductions going forward, looking at that cumulative amount so that there's less confusion about why is one month low and another month high.
Do you want to spend a couple minutes on this? Because this is something that was in the first tranche after the framework of comments we received, which was the yo-yoing of, because people would focus on a given percentage, it was distracting, I think was the word that one of the local water agencies had to their communication messages. So can you just explain it one more time? Because I also want the media to understand it.
Sure thing. So I'll take December 2014 and January 15 as a perfect example. So you can see the big bar in December 2014, 22% savings, which is a great number. It rained a lot in December across large parts of the state, and people turned off their irrigation. And so we had big savings compared to December of 2013. January was dry across most of the state, and the savings percentage was reduced substantially, and so there was this impression that, well, people sort of didn't, what happened from month to month, and it is a big change. But what you look and see is, even though January probably wasn't as good as it should have been, we would hope to have greater conservation. The cumulative percentage of conservation only dropped by 0.2%. So cumulative conservation, through January was still nearly 10%. So it's just a way to measure how we're doing across time without the variation. So our focus has been on the urban water suppliers, which serve more than 3,000 connections or more than 3,000 acre-feet of water in a year, and those suppliers provide water to more than 90% of the state's population. However, we also have many smaller water systems which provide water to the remaining approximately 10% of the state's population. And for the first time, we're going to be requiring specific reductions in reporting from them, and I'll get to that later on. Also, just as a reminder, we have many different governmental or organizational structures for water suppliers in California. Some of them are local governments, they're cities or counties. Some of them are special districts. Some of them are mutual water companies. And then 16% of the state is served by investor-owned utilities, which are regulated by the state's Public Utilities Commission. And the Public Utilities Commission will be acting after you all act to codify the reductions for those suppliers. So in March, you passed an update to our emergency conservation regulation, and there were some new requirements. And one of those new requirements was for all of the suppliers to reduce the number of days per week if they didn't have any restrictions on the number of days per week that outdoor watering was allowed, and to report on their enforcement actions against water waste. So what you can see is there were 126 that, as of before this new update to the emergency regulation was passed, did not actually restrict the number of days per week that outdoor irrigation was allowed. So in those places, outdoor irrigation was allowed 7 days per week. There may have been time restrictions, only between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m., but there were no days per week restrictions. The current emergency regulation that is in effect does require all of the urban water suppliers to reduce the number of days per week that outdoor irrigation is allowed, either to what is in a plan that they currently have or to 2 days per week.
So that, okay, so we did it in March, so that was as of March.